Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I do these videos so that it can be a thought-provoking experience for you. So that you can ask yourself the questions that maybe you didn't think about asking yourself. It's not to scare you, but to inform you as to what may happen and how I feel about whether it is a possibility or not. I could be wrong, but what does it hurt to be prepared? So the topic of today's video is, what would you do if the banks closed? If you went to use your credit card or your ATM card and they didn't work? That's a good question, isn't it? If you remember back in 2008, the Fed had to go to Congress to ask for $700 billion. Isn't that something, ladies and gentlemen? They had to go to Congress to ask for $700 billion. And today they're printing trillions of dollars. Since September of last year, they printed more than $10 trillion. And we're still enduring the economic crisis that we are enduring right now. And of course, it can be blamed on this health crisis that we are going through. However, if most of you take a look back, you'll see that the problems with our economy and our financial system had started well before last year or this year when this health crisis started. So in 2008, there was what is called an electronic run on the banks. And this congressman actually made himself a bit famous by going on TV. I forgot what channel it was on, but you could probably look it up on YouTube and find a video clip where he said we were hours away from the entire world economic system shutting down. There was what is called a run on the bank, which means that big money was withdrawing their funds from the banks at an unprecedented rate. And they put hundreds of billions of dollars into the banking system, and still it didn't help. So they had to go ahead and stop everything and then go and ask Congress for money in order to plug the dam. Now, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, do you think that we are closer to something like that happening today or farther away from it? Since 2008, our world debt has increased by, I don't know, 50, 60 trillion dollars. I believe that right now our world debt stands at about 260 or so trillion dollars. I could be off by a couple trillion, but probably not by much. But debt of all kind has increased, I almost would say exponentially, with all of the printing that's been going on, not only by the Federal Reserve, but by all central banks. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are at the point of the apex where we shift into a new paradigm. And what does that mean, shift into a new paradigm? It means that life will be different. Once we have our next major crisis, and this may be it, and it may be a slow moving train to shift us from this paradigm to the new paradigm. That's the best way to do it. When you do things slowly, have you ever heard about that? You put the frog in water and you bring it up to boiling little by little, it'll jump out. It won't jump out. If you throw a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out right away. But if you put it in there and raise the temperature little by little, it'll jump out. I don't think that's true, but that's how some people explain it. Is that little by little they change things to where one day we wake up and everything is different than it was a few years ago. I'm not saying this is going to happen today or tomorrow. It may take a few years. But we are definitely going into what may be called a new normal. Our standard of living is being stripped from us layer by layer, until we one day will find ourselves in a society where there are the haves and have-nots. So that's what I want you to think about. What will you do if you wake up tomorrow and your ATM card doesn't work? If your bank is closed? If you can't use your credit cards? what will you do? Well, ladies and gentlemen, prepare for what may happen in the future. And of course, you have your basic preparedness things that you do. Of course, you have to have food and water, of course, sustenance, medication, self-defense. Get as much stuff as you can while you can, and you can still afford it. Because I would say that the biggest threat to our way of life now is not this health crisis we're going through. It's the economy. And not even the economy. It's what is being done to try to save the economy. You see, the economy is over. It is over. It is on life support. Right now, every time that you hear them say, yes, we're going to print $1 trillion in stimulus, all that is just an injection going into the patient's body in order to keep them alive. A little adrenaline in order to keep them alive just a little longer so that they can harvest the organs. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what they're doing. Think of it that way. Every time there's a huge stimulus, $1 trillion, $3 trillion, bailing out this corporation, bailing out that corporation, that's just an injection into the body. And then they will take the time that they gained from that stimulus, from stimulating that body, to harvest the organs that they want. And it is exactly what the Federal Reserve is doing. They're keeping all of these corporations alive by lending them money, knowing that eventually they will own these corporations. They're buying mortgage-backed securities from banks. Why? Because banks lend money to people that can't afford to borrow the money. And banks know that eventually these people are going to fail making their mortgage payments. So who's going to own those houses? The Federal Reserve will own all of those mortgages. They will own them. Are they going to give them back to you, ladies and gentlemen? The people that keep them alive? We, ladies and gentlemen, are the people that keep these systems alive. We are the people that keep these systems that were put in place to take away our freedoms, our liberty, our power of choice. We are the ones that keep them alive. So what can we do to prepare for a future where maybe we will have a financial collapse? In my mind, ladies and gentlemen, and I can be wrong, and by all means, you can agree or disagree. In my mind, it is a financial collapse that is going to take down this nation. It is a financial collapse. So what can you do to prepare for something like that happening? It's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Continue to prepare the basic things that you need to live. Okay? Continue to buy food. Store water, or have a resource where you can get water. Have medicine. Buy any over-the-counter medication that you may need. Today and into the future. And although I'm not a financial advisor, let me tell you this. I'll decide to get out of the system. How do I stay out of the system? I do my best. We cannot completely stay out of the system, meaning you can't live nowadays a quality of life that resembles anything close to what we live now if you are out of the system. What do I mean by the system? If you don't have a bank account, if you don't have a credit card or an ATM card, if you don't have a social security number, if you don't have a license or identification that is state issued, you're pretty much not in the system. So you really need those things in order to have a somewhat good quality of life, right? I mean, I think most people would agree. There are the few that live out in the bush and they are completely off the grid and they almost never see civilization, because they're on their own. But that is the very few. So how do I get out of the system as much as I can? Number one, try to take as much wealth out of the system as you can. Try to hold that wealth in your possession. So for example, and I'm just giving you guys an example, okay? I'm not telling you that this is what I do or what you should do. So for example, if you have a bank account, keep enough money in there to just pay the bills that you have to pay. So if you want to have enough money on hand, enough cash on hand to pay the bills for like 3 months, that's fine. And what do I mean bills? The bills that really count. Do I mean have enough cash on hand to pay your credit card statements? No, because if something happens where the banking system shuts down, who cares about credit card bills? Who cares about the mortgage bill? Right? I'm talking about those things that really matter. Keep your gas on. Keep your electricity on. Right? Because only because the banking system goes down doesn't mean that all of these utilities will go down with it. Right? And then if the utilities do go down, then that should be part of your prepping plan. Do you have a way to energize your home if you lose electricity? I'm actually going to be doing a video on that here soon. I'm hoping for the weather to break for a couple of days so I can actually do it, because it takes a lot of setup for me to do that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I digress. Get out of the system with your excess wealth. If you have excess wealth, take it out of the system. And whenever I talk about precious metals, someone always says, I can't eat it. You're going to be throwing it away in the streets one day, etc., etc. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this, right? If you have a, let's say, 2,000 square foot home, and that home is stacked to the rafters with preps, what are you going to do with your excess wealth? You can't continue to put preps in there. You can try to find more places where to put it, right? You have a couple of choices. You can get a storage unit, or you can build a barn in the back of your house, or things like that, right? But there's only so many things that you can buy, right? So what is the best way that you can preserve your wealth for the long term that will allow you to keep your wealth out of the system? That's a decision that you have to make. First of all, do you even want to get out of the system, or mostly get out of the system? Are you willing to risk having your wealth in a system that is as fragile as ours is? And it's not just ours, ladies and gentlemen, it's worldwide. I guarantee you that if the US dollar fails, every single currency that is attached to that US dollar will fail, which is most fiat currencies around the world. The US is the biggest debtor in the entire world, meaning that if we fail, we can't pay our debts. So all of the countries that have debt that is denominated in US dollars will lose whatever wealth they thought they had on paper, right? Because if country A has $1 trillion of US Federal Reserve notes, remember, what is a US Federal Reserve note? It is a promissory note. So if the US Federal Reserve note fails, those promissory notes that all of these other countries are holding will be worth nothing. So the whole world economy will go down if we go down. That is why they are pumping as much stimulus into the system. That's why they're inflating the money supply so much, because they're doing everything they can do to try to keep things together. But like I've said in the past, ladies and gentlemen, anything that is manipulated will continue to be manipulated until it can no longer be manipulated. So my question to you is this: what are you doing to protect yourself against the financial system going down? And I know some people are going to say, well, they already have another system in plan, which I think they do. I think they've already got another system. They're just playing the Hegelian dialectic move. They're playing that move, waiting until things get so bad that the people are like, I need this. Give me that cryptocurrency that's centralized by the government. They're going to wait until it gets so bad that people will be demanding that they be enslaved even more than what they are now. That's what they're waiting for. They're trying to make it so bad for you that you will be begging for your own enslavement. The best way to get people to want you to enslave them is by making them suffer, ladies and gentlemen. That's just the truth. So what are you doing? What are you doing to protect yourself against that type of a calamity where the banks close and you all of a sudden see all of the wealth that you had in paper disappear? What are you doing to protect yourself against that? I get a lot of emails. And ladies and gentlemen, if I don't reply to your emails in a timely manner, it's because I get a lot of emails with people asking me questions about their financial situation. And I cannot answer those emails, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot tell you what to do because I can be wrong. I can be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But think about it for yourselves. Think for yourselves and stop listening to the mainstream media. What I'm telling you right now is not what I want you to think. It's what I want you to think about. When you listen to the mainstream media, they are telling you what they want you to think. They are programming you into what they want you to think and want you to know to be true. I want you to think for yourselves. I want you to think about it and actually go out there and do a little research and find out, hey, is AP right? Is he saying the truth that in 2008, the whole world economy almost failed? Go find out if I'm telling you the truth. And if I'm not, go ahead and hit me back on it and say, no, you're not right. But I've seen that clip 1,000 times, and I actually just read an article not too long ago that stated the same thing. And guess what? I actually lived through that. I actually lived through that downturn, as I'm sure most of you did. It's a cycle, ladies and gentlemen. I'll continue to say that. It's a cycle, and unfortunately, we don't learn. The majority of us do not learn. We will continue to trust the same individuals that led us down the wrong path the last time and the time before that. I mean, take a look at all of these people up on the hill, the 535. They're all well dressed. They all look like they're doing well. Some of them have been there in excess of 40 years, and still no positive change has come to pass. Things just continually get a little bit worse. Just a little bit. Just enough for it not to bother you so that you don't get up and go do something. And then next year it'll be a little bit worse also. Just enough. It's almost like the person I talked to who had I think he had a brother or a sister who was a manager at a supermarket. And this person told me that his brother or sister that was a manager at a supermarket was told by the branch manager that this summer he needed to bring prices up by, I think, like 20%. But that instead of doing it all at once, that he wanted him to do it like 1 or 2% a week. That way people wouldn't really notice. So things are not going to get better, ladies and gentlemen, than they are now. They are going to try to keep this thing going for as long as they possibly can. It's the new boogeyman. It's the new boogeyman. I'm not saying it's not real. Of course it is. A lot of people have lost their lives due to this health crisis. But they are going to milk it to the very, very last inch until they can get as much from us as they possibly can. What can you do about that, ladies and gentlemen? And what can I do about that? Not too much that we can really do about it. All of us together could actually do something about it. But they've done a great job at separating us and having us oppose one another. They've done a great job at that. Propaganda is a great tool, ladies and gentlemen. So the best thing that you can do, ladies and gentlemen, is to prepare. Get real stuff. Get out of the system as much as you can. That's the best that you can do. And then hopefully, when the new paradigm begins, and they say, hey, guess what? We have a new Fed coin, and this is how you're going to get your money. Hopefully, you will be ready to start off better than what you were in the last system. I hope to the good Lord that we don't end up with a centrally controlled cryptocurrency. Ladies and gentlemen, if that happens, we can say goodbye to our liberties. They will literally own us. They think they own us now, but they will literally own us. We will be under attack every single day without too much that we can do about it, unless something really bad happens, like the people really standing up, joining together, and doing things that I would rather not talk about because it's just not pretty. I don't like death and destruction. I truly don't. So protect yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Think about this. Think about what you would do if tomorrow your credit cards didn't work, your ATM card didn't work, the banks were closed. Think about that and put a list together and say, well, I better have some gasoline stored away just in case. Find a gas station in your area that will take cash in case something like that happens. My favorite gas station, by the way, I talked to the owner and I asked him that same question. What would you do if tomorrow all of the banks closed and nobody could use credit cards or ATM cards? And I asked him, would you take cash? And he said, yeah, I would take cash. There you go. I do agree that most big supermarkets would probably close their counters should something like that happen. But eventually, they will probably start accepting cash just because they don't want to risk losing all of the produce and meat inventory that they have. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I probably made this video way too long. I just hope that you get the message, and I hope that you think about this and think about what you would do. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are so infiltrated or inundated with information nowadays coming from everywhere around that sometimes it clouds our judgment. And sometimes we forget to think about the things that really matter. So if it really matters to you that you should have some things set aside in case of a financial collapse of our economy, of our country, then you would want to prep accordingly. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. I truly do appreciate you guys spending a little bit of time with me and standing by while you listen to me rant. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.